Hey, everybody. You are about to hear a brief retelling of the movie The Animal Kingdom. Before we get started, hit the like button and subscribe. It may only be a click for you, but it has a significant impact on the channel. Emil and his father Francois are arguing in the middle of a traffic jam since Emil refused to come and they are running late as a result. Emil eventually gets tired of his father's scolding and leaves the car, prompting Francois to follow him. At that point, they witness an ambulance swaying and something screaming inside before the windows crack. Francois instantly rushes Emil into concealment as the ambulance doors are pulled open and a creature half bird, half man emerges, landing on top of a car. Security officials rush to apprehend the mutant, who resists and yells at them, frightening everyone on the road. The mutant successfully throws the officers away from him before fleeing. Later, Emil and Francois visit the hospital to meet the doctor who is treating Emil's mother, Lana, who is likewise changing into an animal. It turns out that during the previous 2 years, many people across the country have suddenly begun to mutate into more animalistic forms, with the majority of them becoming quite violent. Authorities are attempting to apprehend all of them and confine them to specialized facilities where the mutants are kept tranquil with sedatives while being examined in the hopes of discovering a cure. Most people are afraid of mutants and want them to be locked up. Emil refuses to visit his mother because she accidentally scratched his face, but Francois insists she is still family. The doctor informs Francois that a new and more advanced reception center has opened in the south and Lana should be sent there, which he readily accepts. He wants to relocate there with Emil so that they can begin a fresh life free of the judgment of those who already know Lana. When they reach Lana's room, Emil observes the scratches on the walls and avoids getting too close. Francois sits with her and talks to her, believing it will help, but Emil does not believe she understands what they are saying. A few weeks later, Emil, Francois, and their dog relocate to their new home beside the forest. Emil soon starts attending school, and when the teacher introduces him to the class, Nina asks too many questions. Emil decides to lie, claiming his mother has died before revealing that his scar was caused by lightning. Later that night, a massive storm hits the town. The electricity goes out, and Emil is awakened by the noise of the wind and lightning. He goes to check the window and is surprised to see a thing staring into the house, but as soon as Francois restores power, the creature vanishes. The next day, they receive an emergency call and race to the nearby lake, where police and firefighters have cordoned off the area. It turns out that the storm drove an ambulance to leave the road and crash into the lake, and when they see a cop collecting a creature's body, Francois fears the worst. This was the ambulance that was taking all of the mutants to the new center. Half of them are now dead, while the others have escaped. The cops restrain a distraught Francois as he shouts for his wife, but Officer Julia assures him that they have not located Lana's body, thus she must be elsewhere in the forest. When they come home, Francois begins hanging some of their garments on the trees around the house, thinking that the smell may lead Lana to them. The next day in class, the gym teacher assigns the class to play tug of war, and Emil's entire team falls to the ground except him. Surprisingly, he can pull alone long enough for his teammates to catch up and win the contest. Afterward, everyone is astonished by Emil's power and invites him to a party. However, Emil is too preoccupied with scrutinizing his fingers and runs back to his residence, where he uses tweezers to pluck something from under his nails while screaming in agony. He is taken aback when he discovers some small claws, implying that he is also gradually mutating. Then he checks his back in the mirror and realizes that the shape of his column is also changing. Furious, he throws objects around the bathroom before going into the shower to wash away his embarrassment. His dog joins him in the tub for comfort. Meanwhile, Francois goes to the mailbox and runs into Julia, who informs him that they are no longer hunting because the government has agreed to deploy the military. Suddenly, they hear screams because the client spotted a mutant. Julia instructs her teammates to leave the mall, while Francois hunts for the mutant to see whether it is Lana. The creature is a squid mutant who only wants to eat fish, and when she realizes she has been discovered, she tosses a carton of shrimp at them before fleeing. She continues to toss odd food at Julia as she chases her, but it is insufficient to deter a skilled officer, so Julia jumps on her to apprehend her. Francois looks under a grocery store display and discovers another mutant who appears terrified, but he decides not to alert the cops. The following Friday, Emil attends the party and has a great time. His friends appreciate the swords provided by a man who will give a presentation at the approaching Midsummer Festival. Emil suddenly feels unwell from the drink and falls off his seat. Nina delivers Emil some medicine, and he can't stop himself from licking her hand to pick it up, causing the others to freak out. Emil flees through the forest, embarrassed and ashamed, as he hears other mutants making noise. The next morning, Emil awakens near the lake to the sound of a passing speedboat. He finds blood in his mouth and immediately spits it out before leaving, seeing anti-mutant graffiti on his way home. At home, he runs to the bathroom and throws up a feather, realizing he ate a bird the night before. Francois and Emil then ignore the cops' obstacles and head to the jungle in pursuit of Lana. Emil asks his father how he felt when Lana began to shift, and Francois says he wasn't terrified. She was still his wife, just a little different. When night falls, they resume their search for the automobile, screaming through the windows and blasting Lana's favorite song at high level. They spend the night in the car, and the next morning Emil sees his nails are changing again. His dog bolts, and Emil pursues him, only to discover a chameleon child in a tree. At that point, the Birdman from the beginning takes Emil to the ground and begins pounding him with his wings while his claws injure his shoulder, causing it to bleed. However, the man freezes when he stares into Emil's eyes and realizes he is also a mutant. Francois rushes to his son, grabs his arm, and tells the bird guy to leave. When they get back in the car, Francois declares that they are heading to the hospital, but Emil refuses since they will learn the truth. Their quarrel almost causes them to collide with a horse, but Francois stops the car just in time, and they realize they've arrived at the riding school. When the cops arrive and Julia explains that a mutant attacked the horses, Francois takes advantage of the situation to request a favor. An army nurse ends up giving Emil the sutures he requires and accepts the story that the dog bit his shoulder. Later, at home, Emil removes some of the stitching and begins licking the leaking incision. Later, during lab class, Emil discovers Nina wearing a necklace with a feather similar to the one he puked and panic out, but Nina quickly calls him out on it. Then he loses concentration because he is distracted by the ferrets squealing in their cage. Finally, he snaps and yells at them, urging them to shut up. Emil struggles to ride his bike after class due to physical changes, and Nina does her best to be helpful, even inviting Emil to hang out at her house. While preparing a snack, Emil opens the fridge and discovers a dead bird, which Nina claims she found at her door after the party and used its feather for the necklace. Emil discovers he did not eat it. Instead, he left it as a gift for her. Nina is keeping it because she intends to donate it as food for the mutants. Emil then gets into the water and catches a fish with his own hands, which is witnessed by a neighbor. Then he looks for the Birdman, who is attempting to fly but repeatedly falls to the ground. Emil leaves the fish for him and discovers that he has nicknamed himself Fix because he can't recall his own name. Seeing Fix's wounds from his attempted flights, Emil suggests a safer place to train and takes him to the lake. Fix agrees to practice in the water after Emil removes all of the branches to prevent more damage. Emil tries to ride his bike home in the evening but continues crashing, so he abandons it in the forest and informs his father that it has been stolen. Meanwhile, at the pub where Francois works, he discovers that the owner has created anti-mutant t-shirts, which makes him quite uncomfortable. Then, when taking out the trash, he hears some noises in the backyard and is immediately grabbed by a mutant who pushes Francois to the ground. Francois notices the monster is in shackles and attempts to soothe it down quietly, only to witness a second mutant flee. At that point, a co-worker knocks the creature back with an oar, revealing that the mutant is a relative of hers, which she has been hiding at work. She and Francois attempt to lead the monster back into hiding, but the mutant freaks out and rushes to the front of the pub, prompting everyone to flee in terror. Francois hurries to the jungle, believing the other thing is Lana, and discovers his wife in full bear form, making a noise at him before fleeing. Later, at lunch, Emil feels something in his mouth and spits out a tooth. The others are creeped out, so he pretends it's a baby tooth. In the afternoon, he visits Fix, who continues falling into the sea while attempting to learn to fly. When Fix takes a break, Emil examines his injuries and removes the bandage off his face, only to learn that the doctors performed a horrific surgery to remove the growing beak. Julia goes to the forest with Francois in the evening to assist him in his search for Lana, and they must hide if they notice a police car approaching. In the end, they don't find any creatures, but Francois is surprised to discover Emil's bicycle. When Francois arrives home, he learns that the bathroom sink is clogged, so he removes the pipe to drain it. Inside, he discovers a lot of hair and claws, which leads him to assume Emil is also changing. When Emil gets home, Francois shows him the claws and the bike, but Emil denies everything. Francois has locked the home and refuses to let him in unless he confesses, so Emil flees. A panicked Francois chases him down and tackles him to the ground, squeezing Emil tightly while he has a breakdown. The next morning, Emil eats straight from his plate rather than with a fork, but Francois remains encouraging. He also gives Emil some of Lana's meds to help him manage his impulses while in class. Then Francois examines Emil's mouth and confirms that the fangs are in the back for the time being, so others will not see them. He tells his son to clip his nails every day and put cotton in his ears before covering them with hair so that his increased hearing is not overwhelmed by noises. Finally, Francois demonstrates Emil how to apply a hair removal treatment to his body. Later that day, Emil talks on the phone with Nina while walking outside the house. He asks Nina to scream, and when she does, he's relieved to realize that he can hear her all the way from there. The next day, Emil pays a visit to Fix and discovers that he is no longer able to speak, just making bird sounds. After Emil hugs him, Fix climbs a tree and jumps, indicating that he can finally fly and enjoys it. Emil then travels to the festival, where his father is working. Francois is upset to see him because Emil should be hiding, and an argument starts, swiftly devolving into physical hostility. Emil growls as he bites his dad on the shoulder, refusing to release go until Francois threatens him with scissors. Emil walks away, upset and bewildered, and runs into Nina, who asks him for a walk through the cornfields. The teens kiss, and things quickly heat up, so they lie down and get dirty. When Emil takes off his shirt, Nina notices the hair and the modified spine, but she claims she knew and continues on. They then return to the festival, and Emil goes to the restroom, where he is confronted by a student who witnessed him and Nina on the field. The man makes a noise using a little machine that only animals are meant to hear, which instantly hurts Emil's ears. Scared, Emil assaults the youngster, inflicting scratch scars on his face. Emil instantly flees into the field, while the youngster warns the locals, prompting them to fetch their weapons and call the cops. Soon, a dog discovers him, but Emil scares him away with his bark. When two men notice the dog running, they open fire in its direction, and the alarm goes off. Emil flees as quickly as he can while a crowd pursues him, and when a man is about to shoot him, Fix flies in and knocks him away, killing him with his claws. Then Fix flies into the forest, where Emil can pursue him. A police cruiser chases them down, and Emil crosses the lake to stop them, but the frustrated men open fire from across the water, killing Fix. Emil rushes to his friend's side, crying as Fix dies in his arms. Minutes later, Francois and the hunters discover Fix's body, but no Emil is seen. Meanwhile, in town, a big mutant is lurking around while the army vehicles head to the forest. The following day, Emil remains hidden in the jungle, eating whatever fruit he can find. In the evening, he climbs a tree and joins the chorus of nocturnal creatures by wailing. The following night, a storm attacks the area, forcing Emil to seek refuge within a cave. He is afraid as he is approached by a bear, only to find it is his mother. They bump their foreheads together to express their love for each other, and Lana walks away, hoping her kid will follow her. Emil does so and discovers a plethora of mutants living in harmony, including the chameleon girl. At that point, he notices flares flying over the sky, indicating that the army had spotted them. Emil and the other mutants attempt to flee and hide, but the soldiers use the agonizing sound to force the creatures to collapse on the ground in agony and be captured. The only one who manages to escape is the chameleon girl, who employs camouflage to hide. Later, at the police station, Francois assists Emil in claiming he was inebriated and ended up in the forest by accident. However, when Emil is supposed to sign the release papers, his hand is unable to grasp the pen and the sheet splits. When the cop gives him a new one, Emil can't help but growl at him, so Francois knocks him down before he can raise the alarm. The cop hits his head and drops out while Francois seals the document himself, then swiftly displays it to the receptionist before leaving with Emil. They then get in their car and leave town. The police soon begin pursuing them, but Francois swears Emil that he will not go to any institutions and drives as fast as can, passing under a gate to enter the wilderness. Then Francois tells his son to run, and Emil does so while howling with joy.